All right, now let's do a contest entry. Been watching some of the stuff over. Aaron is from Aaron Mutha Alamare's channel. He's a fairly new guy to the VC, but I love his style. I love his music. He's only been doing videos for, you know, a couple months or so, but he had a contest. He actually started this at the end of June. I, for some reason, missed the entry details until today. The contest will be ending soon. Basically, the gist of it is he wants to see at least eight bands that had 3 albums or less that existed in the 80s or 90s. So they had to have an album, at least one of the 3 albums for the band had to be in the 80s or 90s. So, you know, you think about that, and there's a lot of bands that did a lot more albums, but it kind of narrows it down to just the bands that are a little, you know, here today, gone tomorrow. I started looking through my collection and found it not too hard. Now, you look at Aaron's videos and the bookshelf of albums behind him, and you know he's got probably 10 times the records I do. So he had a lot of able to show a lot of easy bands from a lot of different styles. I thought it might be a little tougher for me, but I do have one slight advantage is I have a whole range of music where there's a bunch of bands that only have one album. And so I was able to pull it together pretty quick. I might even have more than 8. The reason he chose 8 is because his birthday is on August 8th, which will be the day that this video is posted. So happy birthday, Aaron. This is for you right before the contest ends. So let's jump right into this. I'm going to try to take not too long. I've got one little one that I found was a twist, easy to kind of combine it. So I'm going to tell you, I'll admit, I started by more quickly looking at recent acquisitions of records because so much stuff gets reissued these days, and I was able to look at albums that had been reissued in just the past year because it's back catalog of bands that don't exist beyond 2 or 3 albums. So I was able to pull those. Actually, I got one in here that I just received today in the mail, and I just made a video showing it off, and I'm not sure if that'll be posted before or after this. Probably maybe the same day. But let's get into it. I just thought it was neat because these are all going to be new releases that came out years ago because they're coming out again on vinyl, 180 gram, blah blah blah. So, but some of these are not. Some of these I went back and looked just for some slightly more obscure bands to give a little more variety. This first one here is the only album I have by this band. You may or may not be familiar with them. Grand Prix, Samurai. I had this album back in the early 80s. Loved it, loved it. So when I started buying vinyl again, I specifically went out looking for a copy of this. When it came out on CD, it was, you know, kind of a rare release. I grabbed that. And then when I got it on, came out on vinyl, when I got back into vinyl, I grabbed that. Now, this band, this is their 3rd album and final album. They had 2 other albums prior to this in the early 80s. This one was, what did I say, 83, 82, 83. Anyway, so the band started by a couple members from Uriah Heep. First album, I think one of the guys from Uriah Heep sang, and then he left. And the 2nd and 3rd album had a singer, little singer at that point, known, not too popular, at least not to me, as Robin McAuley. Now, after this album, a couple years later, 3 years later, Robin McAuley became the vocalist for the Michael Schenker Band, and of course then they started going by the McAuley Schenker Band. So that kind of put him on the map for me. Even though I had this album, it never clicked until many years later that that's the same guy on this album that was on that. So he did some albums with Michael Schenker, the McAuley Schenker years. He's done some stuff with him now. He's still singing for Michael Schenker's Fest, Schenker Fest, where he's got all the old singers back together. Man, those are some great albums. This is the one I got. I want to get the other ones, but they're only like UK releases. It's an overseas band. Now, other news, McAuley, Robin McAuley has a new band that just came out. I think it's out. I have the digital tracks from the review. Black Swan on Frontier Records. Oh my gosh, it's hot. He's still got the pipes. He's just a great singer. Check out Black Swan for Robin McAuley's new band. It's just commercial hard rock stuff, and I've been enjoying it. So anyway, I won't ramble too much on Robin McAuley. So I've only got one of the three. This one I've shown not too long ago, Skull, and No Bones About It. Bob Kulick passed away a couple months ago. Bob Kulick is the brother to Bruce Kulick, who is, you know, best known for Kiss guitarist. He became the Kiss guitarist during the non-makeup years. After that, he went on to do Union with Karabi, and he's done some other stuff. So Bruce Kulick. Bob Kulick did some behind-the-scenes guitar work for Kiss, which is why he got his brother involved. It also has Bobby Rock. He's also, you know, he was in the mid-'80s, he was in Vinnie Vincent Invasion, and then in the late 80s, he was in Slaughter. Here's the 92 release, and he's in with this, and he's done a lot of other drum work. So we've got him from Slaughter and Vinnie Vincent. We've got Bob from a lot of different things. One and done, only album by these guys. And it's great. I had to track it down and get it. I love it when some of these, you know, these 80s bands that I like buying stuff from the bands that are the smaller known bands. They didn't go too far, you know, a couple albums. And so I'm always buying this kind of stuff. I look for bands, I look at the look, and I'm like, if they look like I want to buy them, they look like the kind of stuff I like, I'm going to buy them. Silent Rage is one of them. Somebody posted this on Facebook, and I thought, I don't even know who they are, but I like that look, and I'm going to buy it. They have one, technically they have one other, so this came out in 87, and then in 88 they came out with an album, Don't Touch Me There, which I do have on my list. Then I guess the band kind of, you know, went away. 2002 they came out with a live album. I assume maybe it was a reunion album. I do not have it. And then in 2008 they brought out the Four Letter Word album. So they have three albums. Two are from the 80s. One is from the later in the 2008. You know, bands are getting back together and trying to relive the put it back together, and so they did that. But still, three albums. Another one and done. Now, you know, and again, I have a lot of these in my collection because I like picking up the little obscure metal bands. Leather Angel. I had this back in the 80s, so when I saw this not too long ago, months ago, in a thrift store, record store type thing, I grabbed it because they just did this one album. Of course, back in the day, this was the 83, 84. They were another one of those, I guess, one of those like LA bands, but you know, of course, they're all female, so that was kind of a minority thing back then. You had bands like them and Girl School, and you know, some of the Rock Goddess. You know, to have an all-female outfit was kind of rare back then. So these guys, girls, these women had this album out. They did later change their name to Jaded Lady, and they put out some other little stuff, but this is the only Leather Angel album that they had. Supposedly, if my understanding is correct, one of them was dating like Nikki Sixx or somebody, so I don't know. I think he had something to do with the album. One of the guys in the band. All right, now moving on. Most all of these are going to be albums that have been recently reissued. So let's jump right into this. We have two limited run vinyl, only two albums by Die Happy. This would have been like, what, 92, 93, one of the each. These were just recently put out on vinyl, and so that's been really cool. I'm trying to keep this glare down. Now, you take, let's see, how am I going to do this the best I'm going to do this? Okay, so these two albums, only two albums by Die Happy. They're both pretty hard rocking. This one starts having a little more of a little, at times, a little more bluesy hard rock. This is kind of a straight, almost at times kind of thrashing a little bit. The thing that makes this notoriety about these guys is the band. At least, you know, the band in this is the band that used to be known as Vengeance Rising. They were a pretty hugely popular death metal type band, one of the early bands in the Christian market. The band and the singer split. The band went on to form Die Happy, and then, you know, with a different singer. Anyway, two amazing albums. Just check them out. They are just solid hard rocking. Now, I mentioned in one of my other videos, which I'm not sure if it'll appear before or after this one either, the new stuff I got from Accept. I started talking about David Reese being the singer on that one Eat the Heat album from Accept. He did one album with them and then was done. Left them, basically, went off to do Bangalore Choir. This band has released 3 albums. This is the one from the early 90s. And then they did one in the early 2000s, and then they did one like in 2008. And then that's basically it. So it's one of those things where they're, again, trying to, recap what they were doing there. David Reese, is a vocalist, great stuff. Like I said, he did Accept, he did this. After leaving that, him and the guitar player from the Die Happy band that I just showed, they got together and did Circle of Silence. These are, again, albums, same with the Bangalore Choir, that were released as limited run vinyl on Scott Waters' label, No Life Till Metal. So you've got one of the guys from Die Happy, you've got the singer David Reese, and they did these 2 albums in the early 90s that are pretty groovin' type, hard rock and metal. They got the 90s look. So, 2 and done type album band. That was just kind of a neat connection how those bands all merged together. Now these are also new. This one I just came in today, and I just showed it in the video I made earlier today. This overseas early thrash band from the 90s, Detritus, just got remastered and reissued on vinyl in the past few months. This one just came in today. This one's been out for a couple months. Another band that did 2 releases, and that was all we've heard from them, and they are gone. And other 2 vinyls that were released in the past year or 2. Holy Soldier. So now Holy Soldier is a, they obviously they got the 80s look going on here. This is their first album, which was in the 80s. This is their second album, which I think was in the early 90s, or maybe they were both in the very early 90s. Anyway, they're, they got that 80s style band. Both of these have been reissued on vinyl in the past less than 2 years. Now, they went on to do a third album with a totally different singer, totally different style. It was like alternative, grungy, weird, Promise Man. Similar, totally different sound, totally different feel altogether. Now, they do have a 4th album. Doesn't disqualify them, though. It's called Encore. Basically, this is a live album. It does have 2 new songs. I think it's 2 new songs. 2 new songs. And then what they've done in concert is they took this singer and he sang some songs, and they took the original singer and he sang some songs. So what you've got here is you've got both singers in a concert. That's why there's 2 guys on there. But this, again, live album doesn't count. So, Holy Soldier, 2 and done. 3 and done. 2 great albums that are similar, and then a 3rd one. These were reissued on vinyl a couple years ago. Haven, Your Dying Day, and Age of Darkness. Haven is a power metal type feel without being too overly double bass heavy like that. Just melodic, high range vocals. Some of the best stuff. I've loved the stuff, and it came out in the late 80s, early 90s, if I recall. And they did have a 3rd album called Haven 3. All 3 of these have been remastered and reissued in the past couple years. This one has not been on vinyl yet, but again, 3 albums done. Check them out, pull them up. A lot of people used to compare them to like a Queensryche thing. I don't think they sound so much like that. I think just the soaring vocals kind of put them in that category of that style of, it's not 80s metal, but it's melodic and it's metal of that time frame. All right. Also a recent reissue, Love Life, Goodbye Lady Jane. Is this on one of the color ones? This is another, on gold. On Rocks Records, this came out, I guess, last year. 1 and done. But, technically, 1 and done. So 1 and done, but then some of the guys, I don't think it was the whole band, but some of the guys went on to do another 1 and done. Okay, I take that back. They did Fear Not. So here's another band that was like a 1 and done. This would have been in the early 90s too, in the 90s somewhere there. Now, I love both of these albums. They both have the same singer, similar styles. Just I love the vocals of Larry on this, of the singer on this. And this was pretty much it. This got reissued, and but like I say, this was a pretty much a one and done. It's kind of hard to tell. It's on a dark purple, kind of a one and done. But just recently, last year, the band got back together. The singer is actually just playing. I don't think he's not actually singing, but they got back together and recorded. I believe it was an EP. So now they're coming back, but for the most part, it was a one and done thing, and now they're, you know, trying to get back and relight the flame there. These also reissued, I think, last year. So, well, let's go with this one first. First, we have Battle Zone. So, Light Force, Australian, get the glare. Australian, I still don't know how to describe it. A lot of people want to throw out Iron Maiden, but I think that's just kind of the musical style. Vocalist almost sounds kind of punkish. Okay, early Iron Maiden, I can see that now. You know, never thought of that. I'm always thinking Bruce Dickinson. You know, cool band. So, the thing that made them significant, aside from the fact that, you know, I like this album and it is very good, is the bass player Steve Rowe went on after Light Force to start Mortification, and they have had a career, you know, that lasted up until a couple years ago with just amazing death, thrash, all kinds of different styles. This is where it all started. Now, technically, I mean, you know, bands have demos out, so technically there were 2 demos, but this would have been the first official. It was released on cassette only, and it had, you know, whatever, 8 songs. It was the first album, Battle Zone. It was released on cassette only, independently released. It was also remastered and put on CD. And again, this is a beautiful, beautiful way that this was done, because it has both of the demos. There might have been others, but it has both of the key demos, the yellow demo and the blue demo from '86. So again, it's packed. I love it when you add in all that stuff. It just it really makes the collector, the completist in me, happy. So this was released a couple years ago, well, last year, on 10-inch vinyl. Very cute. And around the same time, their one and only real record, they were signed to a label, and this came out, Mystical Thieves, and this came out, you know, a year or 2 after that. So that was a self-released independent cassette, and then this is the first one that had US distribution and all that. So they went on to do this. Now again, they did a Light Force album after this, which was more of a demo. No, yeah, self-released, but it was a totally different band. It was what is now known as Mortification, and so they re-released that album under the name Mortification, because it was back into the death metal. The bass player stepped forward and was singing, had a new drummer, a new guitar player. It was a totally different band, different style, but because he was in both bands, he carried the name and then quickly dropped it and has went on with Mortification ever since. So, I'm going to stop there. I've rambled on for too much, but that should be at least 8, if not more, to get me into this contest so I can win one of those sweet prizes you're giving away there, Aaron. Anyway, thanks a lot. Happy birthday. Rock on.